What's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you again today on another awesome podcast episode. You're going to really enjoy this one. I bring on Grady Hillhouse with Practical Engineering. Grady is a civil engineer and self-proclaimed YouTube nerd from Texas. Go check him out on Instagram. I bring Grady on. He has a very, very popular YouTube channel called Practical Engineering, where he explains engineering concepts basically to the masses and helps the general public understand what civil engineers do through storytelling and through explaining engineering concepts that might be difficult for some to understand. He also does get into the engineering side of things with calculations and such, but it definitely is a fine balance. And we do talk about that in this episode. But I'm sure you have checked out his YouTube channel or run across his videos if you are in the world of civil engineering or even in the masses just checking out videos because he's got a popular channel there. So I bring on Grady Hillhouse. It's a really fun episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Go watch his stuff. Go leave him some comments and let him know where you found him. So anyway, I hope you're doing well, and it's all coming right up after this. All right, I got Grady on today with the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. Grady, how's it going?
Going great.
Well, thanks for jumping on the show. I know you're a busy guy running all your YouTube stuff and making some awesome content there. I thought it'd be fun to connect with you and not only learn about what you do and maybe some more of your background and maybe why you do it. But why don't we just start with that? Why don't you tell us how you got into engineering, how that became an interest to you as we kick this thing off?
Sure. Yeah. So I went to, I really didn't have any interest in engineering. When I was in high school, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to the field and I didn't know any engineers. And so I went to college and got a degree in geography.
The Nations of the World, brought to you by Yakko Warner.
But it was focused in water resources. And during my time there, working on my undergraduate degree, I took a few classes within water resources that kind of, gave me a little hints of what was involved in civil engineering. And then I got an internship with the state agency. And there I got to meet some civil engineers who worked there. And that's when I really realized, okay, I should have chosen this as a major. And now, but I'm sure that this is what I want to do. And so I ended up going to graduate school for civil engineering. And it took me a little longer because, I had to take a bunch of undergraduate engineering coursework. But eventually I got there and got my civil engineering degree. So I kind of had a sinuous path to civil engineering.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool that you found your way into it that way.
Yeah.
You probably bring a unique perspective to stuff as well. So I take it that your favorite subject is probably water resources. Is that
accurate? That's what I specialized in college, and that's what most of my professional experience is in as well, as water.
Cool. What advice do you think you would have for someone that is playing around or looking into civil engineering, maybe just starting out in the world of civil engineering? Do you have any pointers for them?
Take geotechnical classes. Everything sits on the ground. Every engineer is going to have to deal with soils eventually. So just take the classes. It's worth it.
You gotta get through that soil, huh?
Yeah. The other thing is just to join some clubs, right? One of the biggest values of an engineering degree is not the knowledge that you take away, but the people that you get to know while you're there. And, throughout your career, those people will, find their own paths within the same industries as you. And then those will be really valuable connections in the future. And so that was something that was really important to me in college, is kind of being a part of a community. And those relationships have served me really well since then.
That's great. Now, as part of preparing or becoming a professional engineer, you have to go through those fun exams, the FE, PE, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So would you have any advice for people that are going through that or even struggling getting over those?
It's a hard test. It's hard for everyone. I don't think there's anyone who just breezes through it. I don't really remember how I studied for the fundamentals exam, but for the PE exam, it's still it's still drilled in my memory. I,
Right.
in Texas, at least at the time I took it, you had to wait 4 years, and I actually found that to be kind of a nice time to revisit all those things within civil engineering that I had forgotten since I'd started working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I started, I think, about 3 or 4 months before the exam, set aside um, about 4 hours a week on Sunday mornings, and I would just wake up, take a practice exam, or if I had already taken the exam, I would just go through the questions and learn how to solve each one, and then take another practice exam and do it again. I mean, it's when you boil it down, it's not that complicated, but it's a hard test, and
Right.
it just takes a lot of discipline and time and effort to drill that material.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, people that can get more practice problems under your belt, you're well ahead of the game. So definitely
Yeah.
do that. So good tips there. Let's jump into your awesome channel. So why don't you take me through what you were doing, or maybe how you got involved in all of this? Because your YouTube channel, Practical Engineering, is a really fun channel. It's a really popular channel. But how, as a civil engineer, what were you doing before, and how did this come to be?
Yeah, thank you. That's really kind. Um, the channel was it's it's been a slow evolution. It kind of started out with woodworking, right? I got
Hmm.
some tools and wanted to learn how to use them. And what do? You go on YouTube and you search how to use a table saw or bandsaw or whatever. And that was my first exposure to YouTube as a community, or as a social media platform, rather than just a search engine for videos. Because I was seeing these woodworkers who had built an audience and were putting out regular content, and I just got so intrigued with that, and so I kind of I wanted to be a part of that community. And so the very first videos I made were just about some projects I did making woodworking, and trying to be a part of that woodworking community. And
Hmm.
at the same time, I was given presentations about my job to elementary schools, because that's the field my wife is in. And so I was kind of building little demonstrations to show the kids what civil engineers do. And I was like, well, I could make a video about that too. And slowly the two things just kind of started meshing. And I realized, like, oh, I kind of have a unique perspective on this part of everyday life that a lot of people are exposed to, infrastructure. And I can kind of, pull the curtain away and show people what it's like to be a civil engineer, and what, some of the infrastructure that they interact with does, or how it works. And so that's kind of how it evolved over time.
Wow. But so as it evolved, though, you just didn't jump all in. You were still working and doing this kind of as a side thing for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't something you just jumped all in, right?
No, no, this was just a hobby of mine. It was a way to unwind. It was a way to try something new and learn some new skills. I don't have any um, training or education in video production, and so I was
Right.
learning these new skills about how to record voiceover, and how to shoot B-roll and all these different things. It was just something fun to do on the weekends and after work, and I really never had any intention of it becoming as big as it did, and I definitely didn't have intentions for the longest time of ever doing it as a full-time gig.
That's awesome. So fast forward to today. I mean, you are doing it as a full time gig,
Yeah.
right? That's pretty cool. How do you how did you manage your work life and the YouTube stuff? And were you just doing it on the weekends, or did it come to a point where you were spending a lot of time on this thing, and you had to make that decision to go all in?
um, I mean, I didn't have any kids at the time. That was a big
Oh,
thing.
that makes it
So
easy.
yeah, so I had a lot of free time comparatively, and so yeah, I was spending a relatively long amount of time on the videos, but also it was a hobby, right? I didn't have a production schedule. I just
Right.
worked on a video until it was done, and then I published it. And then slowly, as I did start to kind of to make the uploads more regular, I did start to have to kind of learn a bunch of tricks to make the production process more efficient and take better advantage of the time that I had available. And I could talk for hours and hours about about video production, but I won't bore you with those details.
Hey, that works.
But yeah, I mean, it was always a balance of the free time after work and
That's
the
cool.
weekends.
I feel like there's a lot of engineers that want to do stuff on the side. I even created a course to help engineers maybe learn how to do that through courses. I called it engineer-to-entrepreneur.net. And I mean, what do you have any advice that people, engineers that might have this creative drive to do something similar, or maybe even to start out as a hobby? Do you feel like engineers, do you feel like there's a creative bug that engineers have sometimes, or are we just all working for someone and cranking out the calculations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it definitely for me was, I really did have this bug of there's some itches that aren't getting scratched at work, and so that's kind of what drove my hobby. But also, YouTube was a cool platform because you get so much feedback, right? Those comments come in, and some
immediate,
some are good, some are bad, and you have to learn how to differentiate.
Filter?
Yeah, you have to learn how to filter which ones are constructive and which ones aren't. But it kind of gave me some accountability with my projects. And it gave me good feedback too, like ways to improve what I was doing, and it was motivating. And I think that's one thing. If I were just publishing videos to a platform where I didn't have that feedback, I don't know if I don't think I would have made it as far as I did, because that motivation factor wouldn't have been there. And so that might be a good tip for anyone who's trying to create a side hustle, or even just to improve in a hobby that they have, is to find a way to create that feedback loop, because that can be really motivating.
That makes sense. What's been your favorite episode to create?
Oh, that's a tough question. This year I started making videos about telling stories about civil engineering, right? Like, a lot of them are failures that happen. Those are when I was a consultant working for a private company, that's stuff that probably would have been a conflict of interest for me. But now that I'm kind of working on this full time, it kind of freed me up to be able to, just to dive into topics that I hadn't been able to before. And a lot of those topics have just been really fun, like telling the story about the Texas power grid failure that happened recently, or I worked in dams for pretty much my whole career. And so a lot of the recent dam failures I've made videos about, and those have been just really fun stories to tell.
That's fantastic. So I'm a practicing transmission engineer, so that one kind of perked my ears up. And I've gone to conferences that have been specifically about that.
Nice.
The Texas issues. So
yeah,
those have been fun ones for me to watch. So I imagine, you put so much work into all of these, it's hard to really pick and choose which one might be your favorite. I don't know which one's like the most popular for your audience either, but maybe that one's my favorite too.
Yeah, I think the most popular one on the channel is about how sinkholes are formed. It's about internal erosion. And that was a really cool video to make, because most of the videos I do, I try to build some kind of physical demonstration in my garage. And for that one, that idea it came straight from my wife. She said, you should make a video about how sinkholes form, because I don't understand that at all. And I just got this instant idea of like how I could build a demo to show how that works, and build the whole thing, plug the pump in, and just it was so obvious right away. It was so crystal clear, and that was a really nice eureka moment. Not every demonstration goes that way, but that one was really fun.
That's awesome. So that's funny that you bring up your wife that helped give you that idea. Does she help with other things on this?
She mainly gives feedback on the videos. She helps a lot with topics. A lot of times I'll run ideas by her and kind of, since she's not an engineer, she has kind of a layman's perspective on these topics, and that's really what I want. That's the direction I want the channel to go, and so she
Has
gives good
she ever
feedback
said
there.
that's not good?
Oh, all the time. I mean, without her, I would be diving into topics that people just don't care about at all.
That's
I'm a
interesting.
true engineer. I just get interested in the most esoteric things, and so she helps kind of keep me on the surface a little better.
Hmm. That brings up a good question. Like, where's the balance? Because you can go into the woods on engineering,
Oh yeah,
really quickly, and then you probably have a weird balance where you're trying to dive into that a little bit without being too overwhelming for a larger audience. So is that a balance? Is that an issue
oh yeah.
you have to figure out?
That's like, I mean, it's the $1 million question, right?
Uh,
It's drawing that line because YouTube doesn't have it. It's anyone. Anyone could click that video and watch it, and you want anyone who does to come away with something, right? And so
hmm
a lot of my videos are structured in a way that um, that people who are interested in the technical details find some nuggets in there, but those who aren't don't get so bogged down in it that they just can't finish the video, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, writing is the most challenging part of the entire production process.
Hmm.
Striking that balance between making it engaging and interesting into a topic that most people have never been exposed to versus making it relevant and interesting to them and contextual to their lives, right? So
Right.
so the answer is yes.
Okay.
That's a big challenge for
Yeah. Tough
videos.
balance there.
Yeah.
Um, well, do you have any other tips or advice for engineers that want to kind of flex their creative muscle? Anything around that?
Um, I mean,
Just
find a
do it.
hobby that you love. Yeah, just do it.
Just do it!
But I mean, that's really what got me here is just doing it, right? I mean, you could go back in the channel. I've never deleted a video from the channel, so you can go back and look at how bad I used to be at this. And I did used to. I mean, it was bad, but luckily YouTube is a fairly forgiving platform. Like no one expects you to be a TV broadcast level
Oh
production,
no.
and so that gave me the freedom to try new things and to try ideas out and to to learn lessons from each video that I made and apply those in the future and just get better and better at it. And still, like, I mean, I'm not going to win any awards for production quality on my videos, but people are really interested in it because it's authentic content, and it's something that they've never seen before. And I feel just super lucky to have chosen a career field where I got to learn all those things and get exposed to all different aspects of infrastructure. And now I can find a way to share that, share my excitement, my passion for that topic with the whole world.
Yeah,
And
that's
there's lots of ways to do that.
right. So, if you got something that you're itching to create or do, just do it. Start it on the
Just
side and
get
go
out there and
for it.
do it. Yeah.
That's good advice. Um, man, is there any books, resources, anything out there that you would recommend to the CEA audience, the Civil Engineering Academy audience, that either on the creative side that you've had fun diving into, or even on the technical side, something that you would recommend to our audience?
Yeah, I have tons of books that I reference all the time. I'm a very visual person, that's why I got so interested in video production. And so things like the Edward Tufts books about visual communication and ways to display quantitative data. He has some awesome books on that. David McCauley, I don't know, he wrote that kid's book How Things Work with all the cavemen and mammoths, but he has
Mm-hmm.
tons of. I mean, most of them are are geared toward kids, but his illustrations are just so rich, and they provide such a nice perspective. There's one called Underground, which is all about you know, subsurface utilities, deep foundation systems, but you know, the
That's
perspectives
awesome.
of the illustrations are like from underneath a building, showing all the piles coming. They're just like, I really love books that just, you know, kind of expand your mind and show you something from a whole different perspective that you've never considered. And he does such a good job of that.
Hmm.
Um, I have my American Civil Engineers handbooks. These are, I
Whoa.
think, from the 30s,
Whoa.
but it's just so cool
Going old.
yeah, to look back at, you know, what the people who were in our career field 100 years ago, what they used as reference material, and how they kind of thought about the career and the work that they were doing. And you know, a lot hasn't changed, to be honest,
And
and
some stuff still standing.
a lot of it still is. And you know, the illustrations in these books are really good. It's just you know, it's just helpful to give you a little perspective on the career.
That's awesome. Well, this has been really fun for me. I hope it was fun for everyone to listen to. It's fun to see a civil engineer be very successful on this creative side of things. And I think our audience will really enjoy hearing about it. So,
Yeah.
Grady, where can people connect with you?
YouTube is the main place, but I have a website, practical.engineering. That
Go check it out.
Yeah, you can check. That's got all the blog posts, a little bit of info about me and everything else I'm working on too. So
Cool. Any what's plans for the future? Any plans?
yeah, so I'm working hard on the channel. That's the main thing. We've ramped up the production schedule to 2 videos a month now, and so
Ooh,
that's the main thing we do. But I'm also working on a book that it will be announced to greater fanfare early next year, and hopefully be released and published later in 2022. So I'm excited
any
about that too.
teasers about the book? Because we got to bring you back on to talk about that
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I mean, I'm happy to talk a little bit about it. It's basically an illustrated guide to infrastructure. So it's kind of like, it's kind of modeled after the field guides to you know, to birds or plants or animals or things like that. But it's really focused on the constructed environment and all the different aspects of, you know, things you can step outside your door and see and learn about.
That's great. I mean, it feels like most of society doesn't really understand what civil engineers do. If you say you're an engineer, some people just don't get what that is.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to be like, well, civil engineers touch everything that you use every day.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
One of my favorite authors, Randall Munroe, has a quote that says, you can look at practically anything man-made around you and know that some engineer was frustrated while they were designing it." And that's very true about civil engineers.
yes, it is. And man, yeah, I still work as a practicing civil engineer, so I can definitely relate to
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
good stuff. Well, Grady, thanks for jumping on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on. We'll see you in a future episode. Maybe we can get you back on talk about your sweet book.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, thanks. See ya. Grady Hillhouse. Grady coming up right after this.